And welcome back, everybody. This is Keith Andrews, your host of The Gathering, right here live on Universal Portal of Peace. And what we're talking about today is rebuilding the community from the home. Now, I noticed, and I don't know if they're still listening, but I noticed there was a bit of confusion that happened in the chat room right as we were going to the end of last segment, where there were a couple of people that appeared to be goofing off. Now, the question, of course, that is begged is, were they goofing off because they were just goofing off, or were they goofing off because they thought it was a chat room and didn't realize we were live? In either event, what we have to really work at here, and again, we start at home. Well, this is, from one perspective, this is a home unto itself. And so what we have to do as the owners and moderators in this room, and as the other members, is realize when you notice that kind of talking back and forth and what is really playing around, which is not a bad thing in and of itself, but if it's taking place during a live show, even the members are encouraged to let the new guests, the newcomers to the chat room, know that we are live, and let them remind them of what the actual rules are, because this community cannot grow if people do not communicate. Okay, kicking people out because they're goofing off is absolutely, if you can't get through to them, is absolutely the road to go. The question becomes an issue of timing, and that's something that will come in time, and it's something that will come with communication. Okay, now one of the biggest issues that I look at is we have an opportunity here, and I, for one, as I've told many people, have no intention of letting this opportunity go. If we don't spread word and let people know there is a different way of doing things, the way they've been doing things has created massive problems, far bigger than they're aware of. And if we keep letting things continue, and we keep dealing with things in the way that they have been dealt with in the past, there is going to be a bigger problem. Now, I mentioned at the end of last segment that we were going to expand just a tad more. Okay, and that is, we go from the local area to the global, and then we're going to leave the planet now, and we're going to look at the overall universal area. Because off this world, there are a whole pile of other things going on. And just so people don't feel left out, war is not only going on this planet, it's also going on off the planet. There is a massive galactic community out there, the Galactic Consortium, that Earth is a part of, whether it wants to be or not. Kind of along the lines of whatever city you're in happens to be part of a bigger community known as a country or a province or a state. Oh, and those aren't necessarily in the right order. So understand, you live in your little tiny neck of the woods, you live in your community, but that community is part of a bigger one. Same as Earth is part of a bigger community. And if you're not treating each other as you desire to be treated in an amicable, positive fashion, then what ends up happening is when you get off-world, you're going to pick a fight with somebody else. Okay. And, you know, I'm going to I'm going to get my foot stuck in things, because here's the reality of the whole 9 yards. Okay. When people are trying to changing the direction, the flow that energy is going. It requires everybody's cooperation. Because you're not going to, I fully understand we are not going to get everybody's cooperation. I am not about to get every person on this planet to get along with everybody else. But I can point out this. If people don't take it on themselves to let minor annoyances and frustrations and things that can be put down quickly, if they don't let them be put down, then what we end up with is what's going on in the States. And with the galactic community, okay, if somebody picks a fight with the States, or if the States picks a fight with somebody, it's going to cause a problem for the people in between. But if somebody picks a fight with an off-worlder, the off-worlder isn't going to care what the boundaries on your piece of paper say. They're going to finish the job for you. And mankind is evolving, and well, is technologically progressing off the planet. Socially, they are still, and you can take offense to this if you want it, but humans are still children. And I don't mean just from the standpoint of, if it's an issue of working with each other or working against each other. That's a choice that everybody has to make. Okay, but it's a job that requires everybody. And there are going to be things that have to be dealt with, that have to be sorted out. And there are negotiations, there are understandings and misunderstandings that are going to happen. On the galactic scale, and this is where the off-worlders and the ancient races come in. Okay, they have become ancient races because they already went through this. Mankind is it's at a breaking point right now. It is either going to turn around and work together, or it isn't. And the sad reality of it is that, from my standpoint, I'm doing what I can to maintain a very delicate balance, even in this small room. And this is a very small community at this point. Okay. The fact of the matter is that this is a starting point. And what you have to take a look at it, and what you have to take a look at is getting people to get along, especially when nerves are already shot, which, by the way, is a state that the world is in right now, is extremely difficult. And it's going to take the combined efforts of everybody to, quite frankly, as the saying goes, put down the swords. Because if you don't, then what you're going to find is that what's left is a burned out husk. That's it. And then whoever manages to survive is all that is going to end up being left. They're going to have to pick up the pieces and start this all over again. Now, I remember Pompeii burning. I remember Atlantis leaving. I remember the Lemurians dropping dead at a heartbeat. Rome collapsed because of greed and power struggles. They always end the same way. The key here is not to let that happen again. And for your community, for me, it's a real simple issue. My community boils down to this. Everything you can see, everything you can feel, everything you can touch, in any sense that you can reach it. That's what I consider my community. But, from a human standpoint, my home expands into this chat room, and that is where I start with. Now, the reality is somebody has to take point. In your community, are you a follower or are you a leader? And if you're a leader, okay, one of the biggest things you have to ask as a leader is, are you doing things that you are trying to do to make things work? Or are you doing them to try and control what's going on? And, you know, the sad part about it is that okay, it is unfortunate when situations, and this is why one of the biggest rules, we get a little sidetracked on this one. One of the biggest reasons for having rules in a chat room is that they are supposed to actually help keep things running. And unfortunately, that doesn't always work as well as we'd like. Now, the problem is, we're still dealing, and it's not exactly a problem, it's more a statement of reality, that this whole issue, this whole reality that the world is facing, this is just a small point of the same problem. Okay, this room shows exactly what we're dealing with. And that means that there is a very big complication. Because if things don't turn around, okay, you have to take a look at what the ramifications are going to be. So in your community, when we talk about being a leader, are you being a leader that is working for the betterment of the community, or are you being a leader to put your ego and your goals up front? Now, the unfortunate part is, sometimes, and quite often with humans, sometimes it gets to be a very big problem. Okay, and that is where, if you take a look at the States as an example, that is where it has become a very blatant problem, but the rest of the world has exactly the same problem on smaller scales. Now, of course, bear in mind that when you take a look at the problem and you look at what's going on, you end up with a very complicated situation. If people can't figure out how to communicate, then it may not be this lifetime, okay? It may not be, well, more to the point, if you're an adult, it may not be in your lifetime. Your kids may get away with it. They may get around it or postpone it. But you can virtually guarantee that your grandkids are going to pay the price. Now, it doesn't seem to matter how much people think about peace. As Robin Williams said some 25 years ago, there are thousands of plans for peace and no action. And unfortunately, there is another saying that goes, what is said cannot be unsaid. What is done cannot be undone. But that doesn't mean it can't be reorganized and corrected. Okay. Sad to say that when certain things happen, sometimes it's almost impossible to turn them around. On the other hand, people can learn. Now, for the people that are out there and living this life right now, I'm looking at the global side of things for the moment. And the global side is this. If you don't change your behaviors in your own homes, there is going to be a problem. Okay, communication is invariably a 50-50 problem. Communication is consistently a problem that has to be worked through. And unfortunately, we are dealing with people where they end up in power that can create complications. Now, you take a look at the global situation, you look at the countries and what they're going through. Those are because of poor situations or poor complications that got out of hand. Okay, sometimes because of personality conflicts, sometimes because of massive communication conflicts, but invariably the outcome is the same. You end up with casualties by the wayside. Now, fortunately, when it comes to communication, casualties can be turned around. Okay, damage can be repaired. Many times it takes years because of the issue we were talking about earlier about putting the past to rest. Okay, and one of the biggest things that I look at is you take a look at how things are being done, how the world is running, and ask yourself this: how do you turn things around other than by just talking? Well, the way of doing that is by action. And from my standpoint with my home, as in the house I live in, the kids that I'm raising, yes, I make the rules, I do them as fair as I can, but I still make the rules. Because I've got the ability to do so. I've got the understanding. Where it comes to the chat room, I don't have the technical background. So therefore, I have to turn it over to other people. And that can cause its own problems. Because rest assured, much as I don't agree with everything that goes on, I also cannot, frankly, control the whole 9 yards. This is where the issue of cooperation comes in. We take a look at that on a bigger scale, and you as individuals, if you've got children and you're taking them to school, you can't control how the other drivers are driving, but you can certainly control how you are. If you're driving through a construction zone, you may not be able to control the other drivers, or for that matter, the construction workers. But you can certainly control how you're behaving. Okay, you have to realize that there is a duality to world existence. There is a push and pull between positive and negative energies, between friendly and aggressive tendencies. It's a very delicate balance point, and it brings us back full circle to the issue of starting with the communication lines in your own home. When was the last time you had a friendly conversation with members of your own household? When was the last time, if you're married and you don't have kids, or for that matter if you do, when was the last time you took time for just the two of you? When was the last time you talked to a neighbor just to say good morning? Okay, all of these things are things that have to be looked at and have to be acknowledged. You can focus on the negative if you want. And don't get me wrong, negative things happen. What just happened in the chat room, our apologies for it. From my standpoint, did I cause it? No. Did I have a part in it? Probably, because of the way that I dealt with other issues. And that being said, remember that point I made about I'm not perfect? I'm not. Am I going to apologize for not being perfect? I don't see the point, because I'll guarantee there aren't very many people out there that are going to apologize for not being perfect. I will acknowledge that I've made miscalculations, and I will do my best to work with what I can. Am I doing this for my own sake? Quite frankly, general consensus amongst the people around me that are physically around me, and even many of the people that I know from the chat rooms and from the line, a lot of my heart attack was actually caused by my caring too much about people. So, do I do this for me? No. Because I've got a very simple philosophy. I've got memories that date back lifetimes. I've got no fear of what's coming. But I can't see the point in letting it do itself in again. Mankind has a lot to offer. You have a lot to provide for people. You've got a lot of talent that can be had, that can be channeled into very prosperous and very mutually beneficial things. But the fact is that if you don't maintain focus, and that doesn't mean you have to be a stick in the mud, it means treat others as you desire to be treated, and realize that everybody out there is not going to think like you. Okay, they aren't going to see the world like you, and Lord knows they aren't going to see it like me. But it is a mutual interaction that is going to show, that is going to put things in place. There are going to be conflicts as we go along. The key is to make certain there aren't too many of them. And when we look at communities, and we look at issues, and we try and deal with things, the unfortunate part of it is that we have a massive job ahead of us. Now, you can see by the community around you, by the people that are interacting, by the ones in control positions, and there is nobody on the planet that is above the emotional issue of power struggles. Not a soul. Okay. Many people, many of the more advanced ones, if you will, and they're all dead, by the way, at least as far as I've come across, manage to get themselves to the point where pretty much all of their power struggles, if you were done with themselves in their own head. Okay, they didn't involve other people. They were battles made with themselves. And that is where things have to be sorted out first. Karmic law number 1 says you must be true to you. And when we look at the communities and the worlds around you, understand that there is a chance here. There is the option of turning this around and getting this world back on track. Do I have all the answers? No. Am I absolutely perfect in everything I do? Clearly not. Point in fact, if I were perfect in all I do, this chat room would run smoother. So much for that thought. If you needed proof I'm not perfect, that should do it for you. If it doesn't, well, try for a couple of other ones. Now, will I get called all sorts of names over the next number of months? You bet. Because on this site, on Universal Portal of Peace, and on YouTube, and many other places, you can actually find the videos that I am now starting to produce to point out the truth behind religion. You know, where we are on the, how the world is standing on the verge of a complete disaster, how to deal with it. I'm going to be looking into the political side of things that people can do to make their own homes run better as far as family communication goes. I am still dedicated to putting enough information out there that is not covering a whole pile of negatives, Okay, aside from pointing them out, but with the negatives has to come direction on how to turn it around. And the how to turn it around is with you. If you're not able to put the past to rest, if you're not able to stay focused on the task at hand, if you're not capable in your heart at this point in dealing with the situation, then you have to look at either stepping away from the situation or getting the training, getting the counseling, sitting down and talking to get it worked out, to get things organized so you can deal with the situation. And that being said, the reality of it all, okay, is I'm not planning on going anywhere, but it is going to require effort and cooperation of a great number more people than what I personally know. So if you're listening to this either live right now or as it hits the archives, or if you're listening to any of the other videos that I'm going to be putting out, if you desire to assist me in helping spread a message of getting this world running smoothly, then absolutely contact me. There's a number of ways of doing it. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me through my company. My name is R.Keith Andrews. You find that on Facebook. The Gathering can be found on Facebook. You can find me through my email, which is innervoiceenterprises@yahoo.ca. You know, the sad reality of it is I'm not that hard to find, but do understand, when I talk about working together, somebody still has to be on point. There isn't a way around it. Okay. But I am quite willing to listen to ideas, to talk to people, to work with them, because this world is still worth saving, and so are the humans on it, not to mention the rest of the races. Now, with that being said, we are going to be here again next week. Well, we'll be here, actually, we've came up with a name for it finally. The Holy Table will be airing this Wednesday night from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Pacific time, where we end up discussing religion and that side of things. In this case, we are going to be discussing the religious guidelines. Now, next Saturday, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time, we will be back here with The Gathering. And The Gathering next week, and I'm hoping Chuck has his ears on, because we are going to actually be discussing the Galactic War. And hopefully, our very own UFO Nut here will be available for his show from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific time this coming Friday for the UFO phenomenon. And with that, people, thank you very much for participating, and we will see you in the very near future. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Keep smiling, people.